The chains in the market, the slave market, smelled like smoke, blood, and oil. Lyra stood quietly under the red twin suns, chains locked tightly around her wrists and ankles. Her skin was bruised, her silver hair dirty, and her green eyes full of fear. She didn't cry anymore. She had cried enough. Now she just stared at the dusty ground. All around her, strange alien creatures walked past, looking at the slaves like they were animals for sale. Some of them laughed, some poked her with long fingers. A few offered low prices to the seller, but none wanted to buy her. "She's weak," one alien hissed. "She'll die in a week," another spat. "She's not even beautiful anymore," said a third. Lyra stayed silent. Let them talk. She didn't care. The only thing she hoped for now was that her death would come quickly. Then everything went quiet. Footsteps echoed across the market. Not fast, not heavy, just slow, steady steps. The crowd turned their heads. Even the loud alien seller looked up in surprise. A human was walking toward them. Humans were rare in this part of the galaxy. Most aliens feared them. They were from a death world, strong, smart, and unpredictable. But this one didn't look like a warrior. He looked old. He had gray in his short hair, a lined face, simple clothes, no weapons. His eyes were calm, but deep. He stopped right in front of Lyra and looked at her. Lyra didn't lift her head, but she felt his eyes on her. Her body tensed. Was this it? Was he going to buy her? The seller grinned with his sharp teeth. "Ah, great choice, human. She's, well, not fresh, but cheap." The man didn't say anything. He just took out a heavy credit chip and placed it on the table. The seller blinked. "You're paying full price?" he asked, surprised. Still no answer. The human only pointed at the chains. The seller laughed and unlocked them quickly. The chains fell to the ground with a loud clang. Lyra didn't move. "You can take her," the seller said with a wicked smile. "Do whatever you want. No one will ask questions." The human didn't react. He simply stepped closer and whispered, "Can you walk?" Lyra slowly looked up at him for the first time. His voice wasn't cold. It wasn't cruel. It wasn't full of desire or anger. It was soft. But she didn't trust it. She had been fooled before. "Yes," she whispered. He nodded and gently placed a small cloak over her shoulders. Then he walked toward his ship. Lyra followed him, her legs shaking. As they left the market, the crowd laughed behind them. "She's going to scream tonight. Humans are even worse than us. Poor girl. Doesn't know what's coming." Lyra didn't look back. She only kept her eyes on the ground and followed the strange human. Inside the ship, everything was quiet, clean, simple. The man showed her to a small room. It had a bed, a blanket, a bowl of warm soup. Lyra looked at him carefully. What is this?" "Your room," he said. "Rest, eat." She stepped back, afraid. "Is this part of your game?" "No game." "Then what do you want from me?" she asked sharply. Her voice cracked. "Why did you buy me?" He looked at her for a long second. "Because you shouldn't have been for sale." She stared at him, confused. Was this a trick? Was he testing her? She didn't eat the soup. She didn't lie on the bed. She sat in the corner of the room with her knees up and her arms tight around herself. She watched the door all night, waiting for him to return and hurt her, but he never came. And for the first time in years, no one shouted at her. No one hit her. No one touched her. Just silence. In that silence, Lyra felt something strange. Not safety, not peace. It was confusion. Who was this human? And what did he really want? Because no one ever helped someone like her, without a reason. The human ship wasn't a prison. Lyra woke up to the soft sound of humming. She had not meant to sleep. She had tried to stay awake all night, sitting in the corner with her back against the wall, arms around her knees, waiting for pain to come. But it never did. The door never opened. Now, warm light from a small ceiling lamp filled the room. The blanket had somehow been placed over her while she slept. Her heart jumped. Had he touched her? She looked around quickly. No chains, no guards, just a simple tray of food, still warm, and a folded piece of cloth that looked like a clean outfit. Hooray. Alien mind screamed, "It's a trap!" But her empty stomach whispered, "Eat. Just a little." She picked up the bowl of soup, hands trembling. Her nose twitched. The smell was not poison. It smelled like real vegetables. Clean, fresh. One small sip. Then another. Soon the bowl was empty. She dropped it like it might explode. "What did I just do?" she whispered to herself. "He's done nothing to me. Why?" Outside the room in the control chamber of the ship, the human man adjusted flight settings. His ship, the Quiet Star, wasn't fast, but it was dependable, just like him. He checked the navigation path, far from the slave worlds, toward the free zones. He paused when he heard a small sound behind him. Lyra had stepped out. She was wearing the clean clothes he had left. They were a little big on her small frame, but her bruises were fading. Her hair was still messy, but her eyes were sharper now. She didn't look like a slave anymore. She looked confused. He didn't speak. He simply nodded toward the seat. Beside him, she walked over slowly, like a wild animal unsure if it's safe. "Why am I here?" she asked, voice low. "You're not a prisoner," he replied. "Then why did you buy me?" "I didn't buy you. I bought your freedom." That sentence didn't make sense to her. "You paid a fortune. I had savings. You could have bought a better ship, or repairs, or weapons. Why, me?" He finally turned to her and said something that froze her heart. "Because I saw myself in your eyes." Her mouth opened slightly. "You were a slave?" He shook his head. "No, but I've been broken before." For a moment, silence fell between them. "Where are you taking me?" she finally asked. "To a safe place. You'll decide what to do after that. You're not going to use me? Not for anything?" His expression was calm but firm. "No, never." Lyra felt like the air had been knocked out of her. She sat in the co-pilot seat but didn't know how to sit. Her fingers touched the buttons but didn't press them. "You're strange," she whispered. He smiled faintly. "So are you." Later, in the ship's small common room, Lyra saw something she hadn't seen in a long time. A mirror. She looked into it. Her reflection surprised her. Not because she looked beautiful. She didn't. Not yet. But because she looked alive. She touched her face, her cheek. Her scars were still there, but they weren't bleeding anymore. The girl in the mirror wasn't someone's property. She was someone with a future. She walked back to her room and sat on the bed, not the floor. For the first time, she allowed herself to believe. Maybe, just maybe, this human didn't want to hurt her. Maybe he wanted to help. But why? And could she ever trust again? These questions echoed in her mind as the ship flew silently through the stars. The healing begins. Lyra didn't know how to be unchained. It was easy to pretend she was still trapped. Easy to stay silent, sit in corners, and wait for commands that never came. But now, every new moment on the human ship forced her to face a terrifying idea. She was free. She stood at the door of the ship's medbay, watching the man quietly work. He had gloves on and was cleaning old bandages, humming a soft tune under his breath. The air smelled like herbs and metal. When he noticed her, he didn't flinch. He simply looked up and said, "Good morning." She didn't answer, just stared. He pointed gently to the exam bed. "Let me see your ankle. It was swollen yesterday." She took a step back. "I won't touch you without your permission," he added. "You can sit. I'll talk you through everything." Lyra blinked, confused. Again, she had been treated before, by cold alien medics with metal tools and sharp voices. None had ever asked. No one had waited for her permission. Cautiously, she walked in and sat on the edge of the bed. Her leg trembled as she lifted her pant, leg revealing purple bruises and a swollen joint. The man knelt slowly. "Do I have your permission to check it?" Her lips parted. "Yes." His fingers were steady and gentle. He didn't poke hard. He didn't look at her like a thing, only like a patient. "You've walked too much on it. Sprained, not broken. You'll heal." Lyra bit her lip. "You know medicine?" "I was a field medic, a long time ago, before I retired." "You were a soldier?" He nodded once. "Long before the galaxy cared." She watched him wrap her ankle with clean white cloth. "You still act like a soldier." He gave a small smile. "Only when I have someone to protect." Those words hit her in the chest. Later that day, she found herself exploring the ship. Not sneaking, not hiding, just walking. She opened a small room and saw strange human things, books, pictures, and a small wooden carving of a tree. She picked it up. It was smooth, warm. The human walked in. "That was my daughter's," he said softly. Lyra froze. She carved it when she was young. "She's gone now." She placed the item back carefully. "I'm sorry." "It's all right. You didn't know." She nodded, unsure what else to say. "I see her in you sometimes," he added. That made her chest tighten. "Why?" "Because you still care, even after all the pain." Lyra turned her face away. "No one's ever said that to me." That night she couldn't sleep. She kept hearing voices in her head. Old owners, cruel laughter, screams. But in the middle of those memories, a new voice cut through. "You're not a prisoner anymore." She sat up, sweat on her forehead. Quietly, she crept into the kitchen area. There, on the table, sat a cup of warm tea with a note. "If you can't sleep, drink this. It helps." No signature, no name. But she knew who had left it. She drank, it slowly, holding the cup in both hands. Her fingers stopped shaking by the last sip. The next morning, she did something strange. She entered the control room and asked, "Can I help with something?" The human looked at her, surprised but not shocked. "You can clean the panels with that cloth." He handed her a soft rag. No commands, just a choice. As she wiped the screens, she looked over at him. "Why do you treat me like this?" "Like what?" "Like I'm someone." "Because you are." She didn't answer. Her throat was tight. For the first time in her life, someone didn't want to own her. They just wanted her to be. And in that moment, she realized the healing had begun. Someone wants her back. The stars outside the window were peaceful, but inside Lyra's chest a storm had started. She stood near the front deck of the ship, staring into space, her hand gently holding a warm drink. Her ankle was healing, her bruises fading. But something still felt wrong, not with the human, but with the silence. It was too quiet. The human, Captain Duran, as she now knew his name, was working quietly at the controls. His ship, the Quiet Star, moved gently through deep space, following a safe route away from the slave sectors. Lyra spoke softly. "Where are we now?" Duran checked the map. "Half a day from the Rethan line. Beyond that, the Alliance doesn't allow slave trading. You'll be safe there." Safe. She still didn't believe in that word, but she wanted to. Then, without warning, an alarm blinked red. Duran leaned forward. "Incoming ship, fast. No ID signal." Lyra froze. "Is it pirates?" Duran narrowed his eyes. "Worse." The ship rocked as a voice crackled through the speaker. "Surrender the property, human. The girl belongs to us." Lyra's heart stopped. That voice, she knew it, Slaver Captain Trask, one of the cruelest, the one who sold her last. Her hand began to shake. They found me. Joran's hand slammed the comms button. She doesn't belong to anyone. You paid for her, that means nothing. She's tagged. We have her genetic code. Lyra stepped back, whispering, "They'll kill you." Joran didn't answer. He turned the ship sharply, throwing it into evasive mode. Lights dimmed. Shields activated. "They'll have weapons," he muttered. "We'll have to outrun them." "But this ship, it's old. Doesn't mean it can't bite," Joran said calmly. The enemy's ship fired. A blast of plasma hit the rear shields. The ship shook, lights flickering. Lyra clung to the side panel. "Why are you doing this? You could just give me back." Joran turned to her, his voice hard. "Because no one owns you. Not anymore." She stared at him. He could have handed her over. It was the smart thing to do. She was just a broken ex-slave. Not worth his life, but he refused. He was ready to fight for her. Joran pushed the engines hard. The old ship groaned. The enemy closed in. Lyra rushed to the weapons console. "I can help. I know their shield patterns." Joran gave a small nod. "Then help." For the first time since her capture, she wasn't hiding. She was fighting. "Now," she yelled. "Their left side is weak after the first blast." Joran fired a pulse cannon. The enemy ship jolted back. A direct hit. They spun and dove through an asteroid field. Rocks slammed around them. The enemy followed, but slower. "They're not used to someone fighting back," Lyra said. "Good," Joran replied. "Let's teach them." Together they flew like ghosts through space, firing, dodging, thinking as one. The slavers made one final attempt, then pulled back. They fled. Gone. Silence returned. Joran landed the ship on a quiet moon to make repairs. As the engines cooled, Lyra stepped outside with him. They looked up at the strange pink sky. The wind smelled like dust and metal. "You didn't have to save me," she whispered. "I know. Why did you?" "Because I've seen people like them, and I've seen what they do. And I promised myself if I ever had the chance to stop them, I would." She stared at him, her voice shaky. "You could have died." "I've died before," he said softly. "A long time ago. This is just me, living again." Lyra didn't know what to say, so she did something small, but powerful. She walked over and sat beside him, not as a slave, not as cargo, but as someone who finally believed she was worth fighting for. Lyra couldn't sleep. The ship was quiet again, patched and repaired after the attack. Joran had made sure everything was running smoothly, then left her alone with her thoughts. But the silence now felt different, not dangerous, heavy. She walked barefoot through the hallways of the quiet star. Her steps were soft, careful, but not from fear this time, from curiosity. She passed the kitchen, the med bay, then reached the captain's quarters. The door was slightly open. She hesitated, then knocked softly. "Come in." Joran's voice replied from inside. She pushed the door open and stepped in. It was a simple room, neat, clean, not much bigger than hers. A small desk, a bunk, one shelf. On the desk was an old wooden box, unlocked. He was sitting on the edge of the bed, untying his boots. "Can't sleep?" he asked gently. She shook her head. "I keep thinking about what happened, about them coming back." "They won't." "How do you know?" He looked up at her. "Because I've dealt with worse." There was something in his eyes, old pain, real pain. She walked over and glanced at the box on the desk. "What's in there?" He paused. "Memories. Can I see?" He didn't answer right away, then nodded once. She sat down and slowly opened the lid. Inside were photos, real printed ones, something rare these days. A little girl smiling, a younger Joran with short black hair holding her in his arms. "She's beautiful," Lyra whispered. "She was my daughter," he said quietly. Lyra didn't ask what happened. She could feel the story without words. There was a badge in the box, a military emblem, some medals, letters written in neat handwriting, and a small ring. "I lost her," he said after a long pause. "I lost everything." Lyra looked at him. His voice was calm, but something inside him was broken. Just like she had been. "How?" she asked softly. "There was a war. We thought we were fighting for peace. We destroyed cities, left people homeless. My ship took a direct hit. I survived. She didn't." Lyra lowered her eyes. "I'm sorry. You don't have to be. I was angry for a long time. Left the army. Disappeared from everything." He looked at her now, really looked. "And then, I saw you. In that market. You looked the same way I did back then. Empty." Lyra's lips trembled. "I was. I didn't know if I could help," he continued. "But I had to try." She picked up the ring. It was simple. Old. "She gave this to you?" "She said I'd always be her hero." Lyra swallowed hard. "And now? You saved someone else's daughter?" Joran gave a small smile. "I didn't think of it that way, but maybe." She placed the ring back in the box carefully with both hands like it was something sacred. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" "For showing me that not all humans, or people, are cruel." The next morning she woke up and did something new. She made him breakfast. It wasn't much, just reheated rations and tea, but she placed it on the table, waiting nervously. When Joran saw it, he raised an eyebrow. "You cooked?" "I tried," she said almost shyly. He tasted the tea. "Still better than what I made in the army." She laughed. It was short, surprised her, but it was real. He looked at her with quiet pride. "You're healing." She nodded. "So are you." Later, that day, Lyra stood in the hallway looking at her reflection in the ship's window. Her face was still thin, still scarred, but for the first time in her life, she liked the person she saw. Not a slave, not broken, just herself. And she had him to thank for that. The stars looked different now. Lyra stood at the edge of the ship's open ramp. Wind touched her face as the planet below greeted her with open arms. Green trees, blue skies, a village of small homes. In the distance, homes built for people like her. Survivors. The planet was called Aloma, a peaceful world protected by Alliance law. No slavers, no chains, just freedom. Joran stood behind her, arms crossed, silent. "This is it," he said softly. "This is where you can start again." Lyra said nothing. Her eyes stayed locked on the horizon. She had waited years for this, a place to rest, a place to live. And now it was here, just one step forward. "You'll be safe here," Joran added. "No one will ever touch you again." Lyra turned to him slowly. "And you?" He shrugged gently. "I'll go where I'm needed, back to the stars. Maybe. There are others still trapped, still waiting for someone to help." She nodded, then looked down. "I don't know what to do." "That's okay," he said. "The choice is yours now. No one will force you." The words felt heavy, because this was the first time anyone had ever given her a real choice. A kind alien woman named Myrna came out from the village. She waved warmly. "We have a home ready," she said. "Clothes, food, work if you want it. You'll be welcome here, child." Lyra looked at her, then back at Joran. He smiled gently. "You don't owe me anything, Lyra." She looked away. "That's the problem." They walked together down the path to the village. The people there had strange faces, different species, but kind eyes. Many looked like they had seen pain. And now they smiled with quiet strength. A child with insect wings ran up to her and offered a flower. Lyra took it with a small bow. Myrna led her to a small home. The door was painted with bright colors. Inside was a bed, a small kitchen, a window with sunlight. Lyra stepped inside. Duran stayed at the door. "I'll leave the ship docked a few more hours," he said. "Then I'll go." Lyra looked around. It was warm, safe. Everything she'd dreamed of during cold nights in chains. But something felt strange in her chest. She turned back to him. "Will I ever see you again?" "I don't know," he replied honestly. "But you'll be okay." As evening came, Lyra sat on the edge of the bed, staring out the window. She could see the quiet star in the sky, resting like a bird on the hill. Her hands clutched the small wooden carving of the tree, the one she had borrowed from Duran's room without telling him. A memory, a connection. And then she stood up. Ran. Duran was preparing for liftoff when he heard her footsteps. He turned, surprised. She was out. Of breath, eyes wide, holding the wooden carving in her hand. "I borrowed this," she said quickly. "I'm sorry." "You can keep it," he said. She shook her head. "No," she whispered. "I came to give it back. And to say..." She stepped forward, voice trembling. "I choose not to stay." Duran stared. "You don't want to live here?" "I want to live," she said. "But with you." His mouth opened slightly. "I want to help others like me," she continued. "You saved me. Maybe I can help save someone too." Duran's face softened. "Are you sure?" She smiled. Really smiled. For the first time since they met. "I'm sure." He looked at her for a long second, then stepped aside. "Then welcome aboard." That night, the quiet star lifted off once again, rising into the endless black of space. But inside the ship, two people sat side by side. One, who had lost everything, and one, who had just started to gain something new. Not a master and a slave. Not a soldier and a refugee, just two survivors. And now, partners in something greater. Hope. The stars stretched out in all directions, endless and bright. To most people, they looked cold and far away, but to Lyra, sitting in the co-pilot seat beside Captain Duran, the stars had never felt closer. It had been 3 weeks since she made her choice, to stay with him, to leave the safe planet behind, and return to the unknown sky. But this time she wasn't running. She was moving forward. The ship hummed gently as they flew through the quiet sectors. Duran, as always, kept one hand on the flight stick and the other on his worn-out mug of tea. His face looked tired but peaceful. The man who once floated through life with no purpose had found something again. Someone again. Lyra had changed, too. She had cut her long, tangled hair, cleaned her skin, learned to wear a simple uniform like his. Her scars still remained, but she no longer tried to hide them. They were part of her story, and now she wanted to write a new one. With him. They made their first stop at a mining colony near the border. Rumors had reached them. A slaver ship had been spotted nearby, and several young alien workers had gone missing. Lyra felt her stomach turn when she heard the news. Duran watched her closely. "We don't have to get involved. It could be dangerous." She looked up at him, her voice steady. "If we don't, who will?" He gave a small nod. "Then we go." They tracked the slavers to an abandoned cargo ship hiding in a dense asteroid field. Duran handled the controls. Lyra watched the sensors. They're docked, power low. "Probably not expecting anyone," she said. "Perfect," he replied. They landed silently. Moved like shadows through the halls. Inside the cargo ship they found them. 4 alien children locked in a cage. Frightened, weak. Just like Lyra had once been. The moment they saw her, they backed away. "It's okay," she said, kneeling. "We're here to help. I was like you once." They stared at her. Then one of them stepped forward. A small creature with glowing eyes and feathers. "You were a slave too?" Lyra nodded. "But someone saved me. And now I save others." The child reached through the bars and touched her. And Duran appeared beside her and shot the lock open. The kids ran into their arms. The slavers didn't stand a chance. By the time the authorities arrived, Duran and Lyra had already left. Quietly, like ghosts. They didn't do it for thanks. They did it because no one else would. Days turned into weeks. They helped a refugee family stranded on a broken ship. They brought medicine to a plague planet. They taught self-defense to escaped captives, hiding in the ice caves of Grenthos. Everywhere they went, people whispered stories. A human man and a silver-haired alien girl, helping the forgotten. He used to be a war hero, she used to be a slave. Now they fight for justice together. But Lyra didn't care about fame. She cared about impact. Every time they freed someone, she saw her old self in their eyes. And every time they looked at her with hope, she felt stronger. She was becoming something she had never thought possible. A symbol. One day, while flying through quiet space, she stood in the common room with a datapad in her hand. "Joran," she said, holding it up. "I've been writing. Something." He raised an eyebrow. "A message?" "A book," she said. "A story. My story. Our story." He looked surprised. "People need to hear it," she added. "Not just the pain, but the healing too." He smiled slowly. "Then write it." She sat down and began to type. "I was born on a peaceful world. Then they came. They took me. They broke me. I became something less than a person. A slave. A thing. But then one day in a dark market full of monsters, a man came, a middle-aged human with sad eyes. He didn't buy me to use me. He bought me to free me. And I never thought I would be free again. But I was." Months passed. The quiet star landed on a new world, this one rich with green hills and lakes. They were welcomed by a small community of freed aliens building a home from scratch. The leader of the group, a tall ex-slave named Ralcor, came forward and shook Joran's hand. "We've heard of you," he said. "We read the stories she sent." Lyra smiled, a little shy. "You read my writing?" "It gave many of us strength," Ralcor said. "We stopped hiding. We started building." He turned to Joran. "You've given us something we thought we'd lost." "What's that?" the human asked. "Hope." That night, a fire crackled in the center of the camp. Stories were shared, food passed around, children laughed. Joran sat beside Lyra on a log, watching the stars. She leaned her head against his shoulder. "I don't think I ever said it properly," she whispered. "Said what?" "Thank you." "You've already said it 100 times," he replied. "Still," she said, "you saved my life." He turned to her. "No, you saved mine." They sat in silence for a while. Then Lyra spoke again. "You know, I used to think I was nothing, but now I feel like I'm something." "You are," Joran said. "You're more than something. You're unstoppable." She smiled, and, for the first time, she believed him. 1 year later, the book Lyra wrote spread across space, translated into 17 languages, shared on underground networks, banned in some places, but read in secret. It was called "I Was a Slave, Now I Save." Governments noticed. Alliances shifted. People began asking questions. Slave markets started closing, and in the center of it all, 2 names kept showing up: Captain Joran, Lyra, the girl with silver hair. No one could stop them, because they weren't an army. They were just 2 people. But together, they had changed everything. Epilogue: in a quiet part of the galaxy, far from war and pain. The quiet star floated gently. Inside, Joran was planting seeds in a small hydroponic pod. Lyra entered with a message. "It's from the Alliance," she said. He looked up. "They want us to train others, start a program for rescue teams, help teach freedom." He smiled. "Do we say yes?" Lyra walked over, wrapping her arms around him. "We say yes." And so, a girl who once wore chains, and a man who once lived with loss, became a symbol, not of power, but of healing, and every corner of the galaxy whispered their story. He saved her. She healed him, and together, they saved others.